Welcome back to Rewired Sober. Today's conversation is going to hit a nerve, no pun intended, in the best possible way. We're going to be talking about beauty. And before we even go into this conversation, I want to offer a huge disclaimer that I partake in many of these procedures. We're talking about beauty and aesthetics, cosmetic surgery. I've partaken in this. And as we were talking about before we hit record, it's about straddling the line of what you can do to make yourself feel good and also going down into the darker side of it. So today we're going to be talking about a little bit of the dark side, but the psychology behind it as well, the obsession, the chasing, the belief that if we do the thing, the fix the wrinkle, lose the weight, get the procedure, buy the dress, we'll become more desirable, more disciplined, more perfect, right? More. Then we can feel worthy. And honestly, that whole mindset is not all that different from addiction, whether it be alcohol, dieting, cosmetic procedures, people pleasing, social media validation, perfectionism. All of us are trying to solve an emotional problem with an external solution. Today's guest is Kerri Lynn Miller, producer of the upcoming Independent. See, maybe I've had so much Botox and so much filler on my lips that I can't talk anymore. Producer of the upcoming independent film TOX, which explores the dangerous rabbit holes of beauty obsession, self-worth, and the pressure women face to constantly improve themselves. And we're going to be talking a lot about beauty culture and how it intersects with feminism and why midlife can feel like this collision course with aging and what happens when self-improvement becomes a bit of self-rejection and why so many of us women end up numbing our insecurities with alcohol and other things. It's not an anti-beauty conversation, but it's more a conversation about freedom. So I'm introducing our guest right now. I'm going to read her bio directly from my phone. Kerri Lynn Miller. Wow. These are really good bloopers, actually. I've never bloopered this much. I'm going to be totally honest. Maybe it's my setup today. Okay. Oh my God. These are hilarious. Okay. I'm starting over. I'm blaming it on my paralyzed lips. Anyway. Okay. Kerri Lynn Miller is an award-winning filmmaker and actress exploring one of the most pervasive and yet unspoken questions of modern life. What does it cost us to feel enough? Her work sits at the intersection of storytelling and cultural inquiry, examining beauty standards, self-worth, identity, and the psychological toll of chasing external validation. Through her films and growing platform, Kerri is helping to spark a broader conversation around perfectionism, identity, and the deeply human desire to be seen, chosen, and loved. And I am not going to read this entire bio, folks, because it is very long and she has very many accolades. She's started some short films, and you can read all about this if you further research her. You're going to love her. But today we're going to be talking about her feature directorial debut, TOX. It's a female-driven psychological drama set in the glossy, unsettling world of high-end plastic surgery. This film follows a woman unraveling under the weight of perfectionism, body dysmorphia, and addiction to validation. And this is deeply personal to Kerri, as it was born from her own complicated relationship with beauty. So before I go any further reading this, as I could just read this whole bio and that would be the podcast because it's so close to what I wanted to talk about. But welcome, Kerri Lynn.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so great to be here. I'm just excited to have an open and honest conversation about all these things that really plague women and just to have some fun doing it.
Well, I think we're already having a little bit of fun because if you're watching this on YouTube, and maybe I'll include these bloopers, but I have not been able to say so many words. I've made so many blunders. I swear, I really wanted to impress you too. I wanted to show you how well I can do this. And yet I'm fumbling over my plumped lips. And
See, now I just want to be friends with you
anyway,
though. So it actually is all good. I
so
like real
before,
people when we're authentic and we're not like trying to put on this polished version. I mean, like, blah. Okay, we're just
no,
all trying to figure it out in this maze, you know?
yeah, and we have so many similarities in our background. Before we hit record, we were talking about doing previous work in the cosmetic industry and in pharmaceuticals.
Hmm.
And we can get to that as we go on, but I also wanted to talk about how we met, which was my recent trip to New York. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, so I live near Seattle, but I go to New York twice a year. And recently I went to Kim Bellis's white party, and she brought us downstairs at the Maze, this sober and social club, to this special speaker. Wait, I knew nothing about it. And there you were discussing the film, and you showed us the trailer. And I just remember you saying, please don't film this with your phone because it hasn't been released yet.
Yeah.
But the audience, I mean, we were all just like dumbfounded at how relevant this is to us and to our lives. And I'm so excited for the film. So how did you get in contact with Kim to do this showing at the white party?
Well, the way it happened was actually through a mutual friend. So Sheila Mendelson, love her so much. She is the
Yes.
executive producer on the film. And one of the reasons that we connected so much is that within the film, there is a relationship between the main character who's struggling with the addiction to perfection and a recovering alcoholic. And Sheila's a recovering alcoholic, and she really just embraced that theme and thought it was really interesting to compare how, there is this substance sort of rehabilitation that happens, like with alcohol or drugs, but no one really thinks about the other things, like such as when you're addicted to perfectionism and you are in some ways almost harming yourself because you continue to want to fix yourself and stick yourself with needles and cut yourself. And it becomes like this really fine line between when does self-love and self-care and self-improvement cross over to self-loathing and wanting to almost like hurt yourself in some ways. Not intentionally, but it ends up being a
Yeah.
byproduct of that. So that's how I connected with Kim. And then she graciously invited me to the event where I got to meet everyone, which was really fun, and to share for the first time that trailer. Um, and it was just so amazing to, first of all, I love alcoholics, recovering addicts. I love everyone in the recovery group because as a trained actress, you are taught to drop down your masks and to be vulnerable, to be authentic, and to, you can't care what other people think in that moment. And what I have found with recovering addicts is that there is just no pretense. It is just, this is me, and this is who I am. And I've hit rock bottom. I don't really care. And I'm just going to show you who I am. And I just love that so much because there's so much similarities in the way you're trained as an actor to be present, to really listen, to take the mask away. And so there's just such a beautiful authenticity that happened within that room. And to be able to share that trailer just meant so much to me. And to be able to connect that way, it made me feel like, oh, wow, I might be on the right track because you're almost in a bubble and we have not shared it with the world yet, and it's like you just share this little piece and you realize it resonates and you're like, oh, that feels good that the last, 10, 12 years of my life that I've been developing it actually could serve in the world. So that's the story with that.
That's so cool. Yeah, and there is sort of an overlap. And this constant wanting and needing to be someone different. And I like that you talked about that people in recovery have taken down the mask. And I talk about this a lot. I have one version of myself. This is it. Like, I have humbled myself down to such a low point in my life that, like, there's nothing left for me to hold up a pretense about.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to immediately open this podcast with, I am not guilty, but I partake in Botox and fillers too.
Right.
I've worked for cosmetic surgeons. I'm a big fan of doing whatever the fuck you have to do to feel better.
Right.
In no way am I coming on here as this platform of like, oh, age gracefully and don't do anything to yourself. Well, great. That's, if you want to be a California raisin, I mean, fine, whatever, right?
Right, right. Yeah, I think it's such a very provoking conversation, right? Because people feel so differently about these different stances. Do you do something to prevent aging? Do you do cosmetic procedures or do you age gracefully? And I think it's really fucking hard to be a woman, especially in this age that we are in with social media and the constant seeing what good is supposed to look like and comparing ourselves and constantly just feeling like we are just failing some test, some invisible test that we don't even know about just because of what's constantly around us. And I think being a woman, you are just not set up for success. It really sucks because, think about what we say to little girls when we see them. Oh, you're just so pretty. Isn't she gorgeous? Look at her. She looks like a little princess. And it's like, we're set up at such a young age to think that our worth is only in how we look, that when you compare that to a young boy, like, oh, he's so athletic, he's so smart, he really can enter a room and have a presence. Like, it's just very different how we treat the two different genders. So I just want to say off the bat, I think that it's harder to be a woman because of the pretenses that are set up before we even get birthed into this world. I mean, that's what we're
For sure.
coming up against. So then to make the decision of what makes you happy, I'm not here to tell anybody what makes them happy. What I am curious and what really I wanted to explore within talks is, because I struggled with this so much, is how some sort of event that happens earlier in your life, some traumatic comment, some experience, how somewhere subconsciously, like your brain takes a snapshot of that and says, oh, I'm never going to feel this pain again. Right. So I'm going to do everything I can so I don't have to feel that. And for me, that was, I'm going to bulletproof myself and try to make myself, as perfect as I can. And that meant, I think as you and I had discussed, I was working for a pharmaceutical company called Allergan, and it was like being an addict in a crack store where I had access to everything from Botox to fillers to lasers for free. And to me, my whole point was I'm going to become so attractive that I won't be able to be hurt again. And
Yes, I totally identify with
well,
that. I tried to get there as well,
yeah,
right? I tried. It was like running on a treadmill, you know?
yeah, yeah. It's like this carrot that just is dangled out there and you never get there. And that's what I think this is important to explore, because there is a fine line between what are we chasing? Why are we chasing it? And when does it become something that is not healthy and is not serving us? Because I really believe, after struggling with this for so much of my life, that until you find your worth inside, you can never find it outside of yourself, and for me, that was when I found Jesus, and I knew that my identity was not of this world. I was already chosen, loved, redeemed, and all of those good things. And that to me changed everything for how I started to operate in the world. It was a little bit of, it was freedom, like what you spoke about.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I identify with that spirituality piece, maybe not in the sense of Jesus, but in, you find something bigger than yourself and the spirit, universe, God, whatever you call it. Um, and I've heard you talk on YouTube about, you're already perfect the way that you are. You're already worthy. And that word worthy, it was resonating with me when I was thinking about, the way I incarnated into this world is like all the things I'm hustling to do to be worthy. And that the idea that there's this power greater than me, that I in the eyes of Mother Nature, God, universe, spirit, whatever, baby Jesus, that I'm already worthy.
Yeah.
I'm already fucking worthy. I love that. I want to talk about how your ideas came together for this film and how you sort of put your thoughts on paper to get this out into the world.
Yeah. It was a long, painful process. I'm a trained actor, not a trained writer. I wrote this as well. And so basically, I got my ass handed to me over and over and over again. I was lucky to be a part of this writing group where they had, Nickel Fellowship, winners. That's a very prestigious writing award for screenplays. And so I was surrounded by people who really knew what they were doing and were very open with telling me when it was just off the mark or just not landing. But what I learned is that it took me a while to really take the mask off. to really let people see the pain of what I had experienced and to share it. And I think that was part of the process in writing because again, we talked earlier when you act and you're doing somebody else's work, right? It's a little bit easier to take the mask off. But when it's more personal to you and you've had a lot of these experiences, sometimes you don't necessarily want to let everybody see because you're still feeling shame, right? And, shame has this way of making us feel like, well, I'd rather cut off my left arm than show this person what I really experienced or what I did or all of these things. And the process for me was very cathartic because it was taking away the shame, right? Because shame needs Brene Brown, love her. She says it needs silence and secrecy, right? In order to live.
Mhm,
But the minute you
mhm.
bring it to the light, like what you said, look, this is me. I'm not hiding anything. I'll tell you, I've done this, I've done that. There's such freedom with that. And I think through this 10-year process, I became much more free. I think there's always room for more. Um, but that was the process, is just being able to show more and more authentically through this character, the story. And that's how the story revealed itself to me.
Wow, so it sounds like you went into this, prepared to tell the truth and quote, expose things and be authentic, but then layers started coming off. And you described you even had to take the mask off even further. Like, what were you trying to convince the world of? What did that mask look like that you had to finally eventually shed?
Yeah. So when I first started writing, I'm like, oh, I'm going to write like a revenge piece about all of the people who, they said these comments and, these women, they,
Oh.
they get back at them and all of this thing. And I just kept getting the feedback that, okay, that's been done before. And that's not really that interesting. So why don't you tell us or share with us what did you go through? What were obviously you always dramatize things because you're writing, but at the heart of it, there's that kernel of truth that you need to operate from in order to tell a story that resonates with other people. And I think that it was just getting pushed away from what I thought people wanted, what would be commercially relevant, to telling this story that ultimately God had placed on my heart and was giving me an opportunity to share with the world. Maybe not even for my own good, maybe like for other people, for them to see, oh shit, I'm not alone. And oh, this is interesting. This is in some ways a cautionary tale of what happens when you do hit rock bottom with that in the perspective of perfectionism and trying to fix yourself constantly. So that was my take.
Yeah. I resonate with that as a business owner, as someone who's started a podcast and as a coaching business. At first, I thought I'm going to be vulnerable in the way that I thought the audience wanted me to be vulnerable, in what I thought people wanted to hear,
Yeah.
because I still wanted to be palatable and popular. I still was looking at the metrics, the ratings,
Yeah.
and over time, slowly I've peeled off my own mask as a public persona, as a person out there with podcast of, no, that's not what I'm about. This is what I'm about. Like, after talking for 80 plus episodes, it's like I've drilled down farther into the core of what I truly believe. So I get that. Like, I've accidentally peeled off masks that I didn't really even realize I was wearing.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% resonate with that because I think I'm still peeling off stuff. It's like an onion,
Yeah,
just like peeling these layers. And it's scary to be vulnerable because
it
it's
is.
exactly what you said. It's like, well, I don't know. How is this going to be perceived? But I think you have to get to a place where you're like, fuck it. I don't care. This is me and this is who I am. You're either going to like me or you're not going to like me. And quite frankly, I don't want the people who are not going to like me. Like
Yeah,
I want to be around
for
people
sure.
who vibe with me, and the others
Yeah.
can fall away.
I find that it seems socially acceptable to have these sorts of addictions.
Right.
Oh, I spent $5,000 on this outfit, or oh, I got a facelift. I'm a workaholic.
Right.
Like, those are kind of glamorous addictions to have.
Right. Right.
And so feels like there's this camp of us, like grungy alcoholic. I don't call myself an
Mhm.
alcoholic. I'm in recovery. There's this grungy, icky version of people in recovery, and then there's this sort of glamorized version. And I think, do you think the fact that it's socially acceptable or even put on a pedestal to keep up, that perpetuates it and makes it worse for women?
Yeah, yeah, and it's like when you just said that, like this grungy, like recovering alcoholic. Well, in this film, it is just as like grungy and like what she goes through, sacrificing her friends, sacrificing her like her life, the things that she does in order. It's like, yeah, on the outside it looks pretty, and maybe the difference is an alcoholic who's laying on the side of the road because whatever doesn't look pretty. I don't know, but they're both they're so similar, it's like one is not better than the other. And it's just our society, to your point, that just glamorizes beyond anything what we look like. Eh, so much more is given to people by the way they look than who they are. And I think it's just such a bigger conversation. It's like it's a flaw, but it is like, how do you exist in that culture that we've created without
Yeah.
it's like, do you want to just go be a Quaker somewhere and do nothing and not color your gray hairs and not work out? Or do you like, because where do you draw the line? Am I going to, not do Botox, but color my hair? Am I going to work out? Because if I really don't
Yeah.
care, I mean, then, so it's hard to do that. But I mean, think about our culture. We have Kim Kardashians and all of them like telling, like everyone's starting to look alike. Did you ever notice that? Like, it feels like everybody.
Yes.
Right. And I think even with AI coming out, AI is going to make these curated, perfect versions of things, even what people say content clips. And in the past, the most prestigious jobs that would make you the most money were like coding, right? Because you could come out and you could, you know, do all the coding for these things and make a lot of money. Well, now I think from what I'm understanding here is like communication is actually the biggest, when people go to school, if you can graduate with a major in communication, that's going to allow people to interact with AI to still give people an authentic experience. Because I think at the heart of it, I don't know, Kate, I just feel like people do want authenticity. I think that like
Yeah.
there's this, we think we're chasing this thing that's going to make us happy, but when you just are like, I think people like you more. I think you're more approachable. I think you have deeper relationships. And I think that you can finally relax because you're not chasing something. You can just take a breath and be like, whew, I'm going to go, I don't know, put my hands in some dirt or go walk around outside. I don't know, but it just is exhausting when you're just chasing perfection over and over again.
Absolutely. And I like that you brought up Instagram and Kim Kardashian because I've heard the term circulating Instagram face. We're all starting to look alike because we're getting the same procedures.
Yeah.
Botox fillers, lips, we're getting the same hairdos. We're all falling into this caricature. And then of course you add AI onto it and it's very westernized features of white people, even when AI tries to create images of people from various backgrounds, they add in this westernized version. And so, yeah, it's like we get streamlined into our brain gets trained. This is what good looks like.
Yeah.
This is what you should look like.
Yep.
And then I know for me, I'll be scrolling social media thinking, oh my God. And I look in the mirror, I'm like, whoa, I don't look like that. Immediately I have to call someone to do something about
Yep.
this California raisin.
Yeah.
If you're watching on YouTube, I'm pointing to my face as the raisin. But yeah, it happens to all of us. And a friend of mine and I were talking, we both have podcasts. We stare at our own face all day long on Zoom, on coaching calls, on podcast calls, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a public figure in any way. You're looking at that little box of your own face. And these Zoom cameras can be really distorting. And so at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, I look 97. I have a giant nose. I have to fix my teeth, fix my hair.
Yeah.
I definitely, if I could afford to get excessive amounts of fillers, there are days when I would have done it because of staring at my own, like, I got to be honest here. The only thing that stopped me from doing all these crazy things to my face in weak moments is money.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who has the money to drop 5 grand at your esthetician to
Mhm.
put fillers are, your body absorbs them, you metabolize them. And I'm a slender woman. I have a fast metabolism. And it's a little bit like flushing money down the toilet
Yeah.
because I love it, but it goes away. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. What were you going to say?
No, I think it's just a question of like when, you look at movies and they have filters over these actors who are getting older to keep them looking young. And it's just like, what about our society just says that we're not allowed to get older, or we're not allowed to, I just wonder about that, right? Because women are having children later on in life, right? Because we don't want to just necessarily be stay-at-home moms and all of that sort of thing. We want a different life, right? And then because of that, we're all like struggling with, well, how do we stay young looking and compete with the younger people that are going out for the same interviews, right? And the same stuff, because companies want to hire people that are younger. And I'm sure men probably deal with this too. I bet you for men, it looks like balding, or like I'm not tall enough, or, things like that. Or I don't make enough money. Like that's their version of it. I guess it's like, it's just such a deeper question, and it infiltrates every area of our life. Because when I think about being a woman, and like back in the day before there was filler, Botox, all those things, as you got older, you were considered wise, and you were considered like that matriarch that would pass along information. And then somewhere along the line, it was like, no, that's not enough. You have to be not only at home taking care of the kids, but you have to look good when your husband comes home. Like all of these things, where I think it's a bigger conversation. I think it's about the patriarch, and I think it's about who's in charge, what's expected of us, and for their good, not necessarily for women. And it's never been an equal thing, because I think there is this version where men and women can beautifully fit together like yin and yang, but one always wants to make the other's position feel more dominant or stronger than the other, versus honoring our differences and letting that rise together.
It begs the question, who benefits from women obsessing over their appearance?
Yeah.
Well, not only the beauty industry, big pharma, but the patriarchy benefits.
Mhm.
Because we have to look at, if we spend all of our time and money trying to be skinny and pretty and have plump face, no wrinkles, all the thing, we're not doing anything of substance. We're just obsessing. And so who benefits from that? Who
Right.
benefits from when women struggle and compete with each other and spend all our time and money on our appearance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there has to be a point when we step back from that. And I I think that you brought up the word compete resonates a lot with me as well. As a 47-year-old woman, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who's a fashion designer out of New York, and she's in her 50s, and she said, "I have to get a facelift. I'm in the fashion industry, overlapping with beauty. I have to compete. No one's going to buy clothes from an old, raggedy looking 50 something year old. I joke, I call my face like looks like a piece of beef jerky, or which I shouldn't even be saying that stuff, right? That's a joke. But her and I had this very honest conversation about the things women have to do to compete.
Right.
Because in a sense, we have to compete. Like, there's more that a woman has to do to play the fucking game.
Right.
I think we can't lie about that.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, because men get better, right? When they are, that's what the
Yes.
line is as they get older, they get better. And as we get older, it's like, unless we're fuckable, then nobody really wants to have anything to do with us. It's almost like you reach this point in your life where, I think they did an SNL skit where you're just like, you're unfuckable. And all of a sudden nobody looks at you, nobody sees you.
Yes.
There's like, you're just like a ghost, And I think people still want to be seen, and still feel like that they belong and they matter and that they love. So it's like, what are you supposed to do as a woman then? You're going to roll over and just do it, or are you going to just try to stay in the game another round,
Mhm.
and it's just exhausting, because I wish it wasn't like that. Because Matt, look, I always think like, what if one day, it was just like every woman just decided they were not gonna do it. Like, you have to almost everybody agree to it. You can't just have, like, that one
Yes.
person that's out there, and that'll never happen, and I realized that. But, like, or did you ever think about what would a world look like where there were no mirrors? Like, you never knew what you look like. I could only just see you, and you could see me, but we would never be sitting at home, like, looking at, doing all these things. We'd have probably so much more time to contribute to things that matter in society and, like, things versus, like, spending all this time obsessing about ourselves and being so, like, self-absorbed with everything. We could actually do good more good in the world. But yeah, unfortunately, alas, we do live in a world where there are mirrors, so here we are. How am I gonna fix it?
Alas.
I don't know.
So I want to go switch gears a little bit, go back to the actual movie, which I have not seen because it has not aired yet. And so I can't talk about it from a place of experience. But for you, when you're putting this together, the arc of your personal story, it seems like it mirrors very closely to the arc of the story from what I could see from the trailer. But I did watch some interviews on YouTube. Tim McGraw and Faith Hill's daughter, Gracie, is in the movie. She's so freaking adorable. She plays Abby in the show. And I watched a brief clip of her talking about initially our first response of when we see ourselves on camera is to love ourselves. And I think that you even said that. Like initially, our first response is, oh, we're good enough. We don't need all this stuff. But then when other people start pointing out our flaws and throwing things at us, then it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I got to get the nip tuck.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, for your personal story, what was the point where you're working for Allergan, you're in your 20s, you're accessing on Botox, all these things, and you pivot and you say, no, something isn't right. Like, I'm worth more than this.
Hmm. Yeah. Whew.
That was 10 questions in one. So pick your
Yeah,
poison.
no, there is a lot there. And I think I'm a seeker. I have always been someone who is trying to figure out the game, whether that was how do I manifest? And I would work with everything from Wayne Dyer to Eckhart Tolle to God, you name it, like
Yes.
Esther Hicks, like all of the people, right, that were in that self-help world. And I know I say this very honestly, and I think it can be different for everybody, but it wasn't until I developed a relationship with Jesus that it actually changed because what I learned is all of the self help stuff actually comes from the Bible. And people take it and they package it because it's all very words, it's words of wisdom in there. And when my friend who brought me to church that one day, I didn't necessarily want to go. I was raised Catholic and I was like, no, I get nothing but like, don't do this. If you do this, you're going to hell and blah, 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 like all that crap. And I was like, I'm done with it. I don't want it. It's so much shame. That's probably half the reason why I struggle with what I struggle with. So she brought me to this, it was a Christian based church. And the difference is it's really just about your relationship with Jesus. And you start to realize that you don't need a priest that can be like forgiving you from your sins, that's your own personal relationship with your maker. And again, I go back to the biggest pivotal moment was understanding my identity. I always thought my identity was outside of myself. But when I knew that Jesus chose me, that he knew me and knit me together in my mother's womb, that I'm his beloved. I can't tell you what it did to me. I just cried. I just broke down and cried because I think I'm going to do it right now. It was something that I think I always wanted. I always just longed for is just that unconditional acceptance and like love and belonging and knowing that you're forgiven and that you're redeemed and that you matter and that you're seen. And I was just running and chasing that for so long that it just felt like, God, like I could just relax. So that to me was my biggest, pivoting point of that. And it took me so many years, to get there in my 40s and so much seeking and chasing and looking for that and so much trying to control like if I think these thoughts, then my life will turn out this way. I can control and manifest and all of these things. And, you know, I think what I just started to, when you accept Jesus, you accept that, you're only alive because your maker is beating your heart, right? And that you are here for a purpose and that it's bigger than what your little things about how you look are or how you feel. And when you start to think along those ways, it just was very freeing for me personally.
Oh, yeah. I think universally we can identify with the concept of having a spiritual awakening, finding something bigger than ourselves, and realize the acceptance piece is what I keep coming back to. And I really like that, the self acceptance, my journey with alcohol was a bit of beauty obsession, weight obsession, never good enough. And then this cycle of drinking to cover the shame. And I had to go on my own spiritual journey once I got sober. I read all the same books too. And because it was like, I had to find something else that was part of a bigger picture here. Like I was talking to Kim, it's bigger than me. It has to be bigger than me.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and anyway, I want to kind of move on here. In your eyes, like having worked in the cosmetics side, at what point does self improvement slide into like self abandonment?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's going to be really very personal for each individual human being because I can only speak from my standpoint is that when it became like a feeling of I had to do it, a feeling of addiction, when it was consuming, like that's all I thought about, then I knew I was abandoning like who I was. And I just had lost myself in this rabbit hole of chasing perfection. And I'm sure it's probably very similar to being an alcoholic, thinking about your next fix, thinking about a drug addict, just thinking about that next thing and you're never really present and it becomes that's what your life is about.
Yeah.
And that's how for
Yeah.
me I kind of knew that.
So before the film is aired and like not spoiling anything, what can you say about the project? What can you say in terms of why other women will resonate with this besides all the stuff we've been talking about?
Yeah, yeah. I think so on my Instagram page, the TOX_film, there is a quote that happens in the film and it says, "We all think we're beautiful until someone tells us we're not." And
Yes.
yes, and I wanted to explore well, I think that people, to answer your first question, will resonate with this because I think we all can think back to middle school or a time when we were younger when something happened that really shook us to the core. It shook maybe who we thought we were, or, maybe we were humming along through life, just being ourselves and feeling good. And then some guy says something to
Mhm.
you, a friend says something to you, a family member says something to you, all sorts of these things. And it just changes us. And we start to think about that comment when we're putting our makeup on. We start to think about that comment when we're looking through a magazine or social media. And we start to wonder, is it true? Should I do something? Am I enough? And all of a sudden, sometimes those negative voices can overtake, the what positive ones were there before. And then before you know it, that doubt is leading you down these roads, doing things that maybe you don't want to do. Or maybe that's addiction in whatever form it is. But in this particular form, it shows up as this woman trying to control how people view her by the way she looks. And it's like at the heart of it, I think control is a big topic because we are trying to control how we feel, how others feel about us, and we really can't. And I think that's what her journey is trying to do that and then, well, failing.
Yeah, yeah. I talk to clients about that, relinquishing that perception that we're in control of other people's opinions,
Right.
right?
Right.
And of the weather, and trying to control so many things. A lot of us women, I think, fall into that trap.
Yeah.
And I like that there's this concept of like, when I turned my camera on and you came onto this podcast, there's a part of me that was trying to control, and that's why I was laughing so hard when I kept making all those mistakes. I was trying to control the image that you see, this well put together, well-spoken woman who says all the right things. And yet I'm also like looking at myself in the camera going, oh my God, I mean, it's just like, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
It really is inevitable.
Uh-huh.
So as the takeaway from the film, I don't imagine it's this Pollyanna, we never worry about it again.
No, it is not. I mean, this is a struggle I struggle with every day. I think women, if you're going to live on planet Earth, you are going to be straddling this for the rest of your life. You really are. And that, I'm so glad you said that, because that was so important to me in this story, that I did not wrap it all up in a pretty bow at the end, because that is not life. And that is not, I mean, if we can take one little step in a direction that might be a little bit healthier, great. And I feel like with this film, not to give it away, but you're not going to get that, hey, everything's perfect and he marries her and they live happily ever. No, that's not happening. And that's like so the opposite and very trite. And I didn't want that, at all. I tried to make it as real as possible, just as authentic as possible. And I think what I hope people walk away with is just, hey, maybe I can see this in a different perspective. Maybe I don't have to do this all the time. Or shit, is this what I'm really doing to my life? I'm wasting all this time I could be spending with my son, with my friends, with my husband, out in nature, and I'm obsessing about this shit. And one day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to look back at my life and be like, oh my God, I have spent and given so many hours obsessing about the way I fucking look and doing all this stuff to myself when I could have been living.
Yeah.
So
the mental chatter and obsession with fixing ourselves. And I guess that's the argument for feminism, is that that's what it's set up to do, is to preoccupy us with fixing ourselves and not fixing the global economy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this story, it just is so, like, there's just so many levels and layers, and going everything from the patriarch to when you're a young child to the way consumerism is built up, and the way even when I think about this, I don't know if you've seen, blows my mind. There's a young man, I think his name's Clavicular, and he is now showing men how to, I think he calls it being, mega alpha or something. I don't know. There's a whole slang that's like
I call it douche-maxing.
Douche-maxing. Exactly. Okay. Douche-maxing. And then there's like this mugging thing where you're always competing with other people. But anyway, this man shows people how to break their cheekbones microscopically so that their cheeks build up more and they can look more masculine. So I feel like it's starting to permeate even the young boys now, because think about that was such more of like, it was more about women, but now young boys are really obsessing about it. Like I have a middle schooler, and, I see like my friends' kids are like walking around like doing this to make their cheeks stick out, or doing like, certain things. And it's becoming more prominent even for boys. And I think what you said is 1000% true, is social media, wherever it comes from, who's trying to get to the American people, I don't know, but maybe it's the patriarch. I don't know. Maybe it's a different country. I don't know. Maybe it's all crazy and I'm a lunatic, but I'm just saying, like, there's some sabotaging happening where they just want to preoccupy us. They want to preoccupy us with all these things that don't really matter while other people go and run the world, whether that's patriarch or that's another country. But something is happening in social media where it's like, this is becoming everything. It's becoming not just a little thing you do, like, it's like it's like all consuming everything. And, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely all pervasive.
I feel really fortunate that I got sober pre-pandemic, before the world was so Zoom and internet obsessed.
Yeah.
And that now that everything is so AI'd and so image driven, I mean, like it was before. Again, I'm not going to Pollyanna it, but the pandemic really shifted things in how much we use screens, right? And therefore how much we stare at our own face all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that happened and I started staring at my own face, like 24/7, I wanted to fix. But I was grateful. I was already sober of alcohol. My mind was clear. And so I could at least think about my own thinking and have insight into, whoa, okay, am I going too far on this?
Yeah.
But I'm glad we're talking about not Pollyannaing this as everything is going to be better, because a lot of women are going to leave this theater and go get Botox, right? Leave the screening of this show. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what about being honest about that? I think another thing with social media is when people of actors, actresses, people of fame, large followings try to pretend that they just look this way naturally.
Yep.
They don't have lots of fillers, Botox, facelift, lip lift, butt lift, all the lifts.
Yeah.
And then lay people like myself go on there. I'm not in the, what do you call it, celebrity world.
Yeah.
And I see someone and I think, oh my God, why don't I look like that?
Yeah.
So it's this honesty. I try to be, personally, I'm not going to stop getting Botox because I like the way that it kind of smooths out my little 47-year-old wrinkles.
Right.
But there's no way I'm going to make another woman feel like I'm just like this because I drink a lot of water. And you're just a raisin. That's your fault, right? I'm not going to make you feel like it's your fault.
Right. Yes. I mean, to your point, have you seen the movie The Substance?
Is that the Demi Moore one?
Yes. And
yeah, that ruined my life. Okay. Gross.
Okay.
Let's talk about that, because thank God, I'm hoping your movie's not like that.
It's not. It is.
I was hoping that Demi Moore movie was kind of going along the lines that you're going on. And so I watched it until I wanted to throw up, because it's so graphic and so gross. And I'm not trying to see someone peel their face off. And like, me and my husband turned it off.
Yeah.
We were like, this is.
Yeah. I mean,
no.
Yes. But I was actually thinking more about what she says when she wins awards, about not. And it's just to your point earlier, it's hard to take seriously somebody who is clearly had a lot of work done and is standing up there, just in my opinion, like not being authentic, right? Like, and I almost wonder how many more people could she reach if she was just like, hey, listen, I struggle with this too. And it's not a quick fix. And I'm not going to tell you I don't do things, because I do things, but you know what I mean? Like, it would resonate so much more. And I think that's the part that this film TOX does not do, is that you're not going to walk out of there feeling like, well, I saw this, but it just doesn't feel real or authentic, And that's why whenever me as the director and also actor in this, when I talk about this, I will try to be as real as possible, because I have struggled with these things. I have done things, I had no surgery as soon as I got out of college, because I felt like I was so obsessed with it. I was struggling with body dysmorphia, and somebody had said something at a young age, and it was like all I could think about. And I had to change my nose. Now, the crazy thing is like, when I look back at those pictures, there really wasn't anything wrong with my nose. It was just the obsession around it. And I'm saying all this to you because I just never want anyone to think like I'm sitting here preaching. I am in it with everybody. I am struggling. I have done things, and and I still every day it's a struggle. And I think it's just every day, even like being an alcoholic, you have to make a choice. Like I say a prayer, like, let me see myself the way my maker sees me, before I do something, or I really try to be intentional before I make any choice to understand what is my why behind this? Why am I doing this? And because I think a lot of people are healthy and they can just say, hey, I feel great. I am not chasing my worth here. And maybe I just want to, go dye my hair this color. Maybe I just want to go get this laser on my face so that I don't look like, you say, a raisin or something, so it's like, there's just no judgment, because I think we're all trying, we have somehow landed in this alternate universe of this is where we live and this is what we're dealing with. And now how can we come together and be honest and like figure it out together and just help each other, see each other the way we see each other, and to take away this idea that our worth is dependent upon how we look.
Yeah, I just I wanted to add in one last piece of this. When I got sober, 2018, then the pandemic happened. I'm looking at myself in the mirror a lot. Another thought I had as a woman who had put her body through hell was, I look like this and it's my fault.
Mm.
I drank and smoked and used my way into being a California raisin, and it's my fault, and therefore I have to correct it. So I've actually written about it, spoken about body image. I'm wearing my Fuck Heroin Chic t-shirt. You can see on, if you're watching on YouTube, because I do see this commonly. It's like a trading of addictions. We get sober and then suddenly fixing ourselves becomes the next best thing. And I know I've certainly fallen into that of, okay, I'm sober, I've cleaned up my life, I've fixed my career. Now what? Now I need to fix this damage I've done to myself. So all of us in New York sitting in that room listening to you talk, we're in recovery and we're all resonating, because I could see many of us, as a person who's worked in the industry, I can tell who's had work done. So can you, right? We just know our way around some injectables. There's nothing wrong with it. I can tell you what every woman's had on every part of her body because I worked in cosmetic surgery. But like, I could just see the resonance is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
And in a non-cheesy way,
God.
what are you hoping that people take away? Like, when they're walking off the screening or they're talking about this with their girlfriends, like, what's the takeaway?
I just want people to chill the fuck out and relax and and not, you know what I mean? Just stop, get off of the wheel. Just take a
Yeah.
breath, you know.
Yeah, and
That's
let's have some honest conversations about this. Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about this. Where can people find you and find information about TOX?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I adore you and I want to just give you a big hug. So if you go to TOX_film on Instagram, you can follow us there. There's also a link in the bio that you can access to get behind the scenes access as well. So we have some footage behind there, which is really exciting. We have a website, toxfilm.com, and hopefully we'll be launching a TikTok soon. We have a YouTube channel, Tox Film, and I just can't wait to get the film out into the world, and hopefully we'll be coming back to announce it shortly.
When do you expect it to come out? Or hope?
Well, I hope tomorrow. But no, we're actively in negotiations right now. So hopefully very soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so looking forward to this. I'm going to hang my hat on that. I'm going to close it out, but thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much.